Redline Logbook here for part 4 of the Hestia Familia. Where we last left off, Belle, Lily, and Welf were on their way to the middle floors. Now, even though they were given proper warning from Ryu and Ina and others, this was not something that they were truly ready for. At first, things seemed to be working out just fine. They were attacked by monsters, they killed the monsters, no big deal. But they soon realized that what makes the middle floor so dangerous is the fact that the dungeon likes to wear its prey down. So even though it feels like these monsters are weak and that you can kill them one after another, the number of monsters is just unbearable. And so at a certain point, the three of them begin overwhelmed by the number of monsters they had to keep fighting, and they were actually planning on returning to the surface. They would have been just fine, and this would have been a standard first expedition into the middle floors for a group of adventurers, but that's when things went downhill real fast. You see, another Familia, the Takamichi Familia, who we'll talk about in their own video, were currently also in an expedition of the middle floors, and one of their members, Chikasa, ended up getting wounded. She took a hatchet to the back by one of the Almirage, and smelling blood and sensing weakness, they got flooded by monsters. As such, they were basically on the run in the middle floors, and their leader, Oka, decided to do what had to be one of the most dishonorable things that you could do in the dungeon, but he did it to save his Familia, so he had no regrets, even afterwards. He felt bad about it, but he said he'd do it again. He had his Familia do a pass parade on Belle's group. A pass parade is when you basically use other adventurers as monster bait so you can escape. You literally run past them with a parade of monsters. Now, normally this wouldn't have been an issue for Belle and his crew, except they were already fighting a group of monsters. So all of a sudden, they were now being attacked by two groups of monsters from two different directions. As a result, they had no choice but to run deeper into the middle floors. And then things got even worse. The ground beneath them literally collapsed, throwing them even deeper into the dungeon and also hurting every member of the party, including breaking Welf's leg. And that's really where the rubber hit the road, was with the Welf's leg being broken. If that didn't happen, they still could have probably made it back to the surface. But as a result of that, Welf needed Belle to walk, and that means Belle couldn't have focused on fighting primarily. So using Belle's speed, Welf's anti-magic, and Lily's items that she has in her pouch, they were able to survive, but they were obviously running low on stamina, mind, and items. And so Lily then suggested that they go down deeper instead of trying to get back up, because they could use the giant holes that are in the middle floors to jump down from floor to floor. It would be faster and easier. And by doing this, they would be able to get all the way to floor 18, which is a safe zone. While in floor 18, they could get help, rest, healing, food, and of course, asked more powerful adventurers to help them get back to the surface. In the end, Belle was the leader, and so he had to be the one to make the decision. And Belle agreed with Lily's idea, and so they went on a harrowing journey deeper into the dungeon. The time they spent together in the middle floors has not been specified, but it's most likely was at least a couple days. So they were constantly moving, not getting any rest, constantly drinking stamina potions just to stay conscious and keep moving, doing anything they can just to get to the 18th floor. On the final stretch, nearing the 18th floor, Welf and Lily both collapsed. Lily because of exhaustion, and Welf because of mind down, because he overused his magic. As a result, Belle had to abandon all of their items and weapons and such, except for the Hestia knife, of course, so he can carry both of them to the finish line, because he himself was already at his limit. And unfortunately for Belle, the Goliath, the floor boss, was about to be reborn. And so Belle had to run while carrying both Lily and Welf across an entirely empty room as a giant monster is born, trying to crush him. Belle literally uses the last bit of strength he has left to make it to the other end, falls through the exit, tumbles down into the 18th floor. He sees a shadowy figure walk towards him, and the moment before he passes out, he asks this figure to save his friends. Back on the surface, after the first day that Belle and his party didn't return, Hestia then gets worried and goes to the guild to see if Ina knows anything. She, of course, knows nothing. In her fear that something horrific might have happened, Hestia puts out a request and a reward for anyone willing to go get and save Belle. We also get a good glimpse of who will be the future allies of the Hestia Familia. This would be the Miyake Familia, the Familia Belle primarily gets his potions from, the Danmachi Familia, which, funny enough, was the whole reason why Belle's group got into the mess they're in now, the Hestia Familia, and a quasi-ally of the Hermes Familia. Feeling guilty, Take decided to send in his 3 strongest members, Oka, Chikasa, and of course, Mikito. Mia couldn't send anyone into the rescue party, but he was able to supply all of the magic items and potions that were necessary. Hephaestus couldn't help at all because all of her strongest members that would be able to go into the middle floors were already there with the Loki Familia. And finally, Hermes sent in Osvi, his captain, as a bodyguard to protect himself, because he decided he wanted to go see Bel himself. That was the whole reason why he came to town, was to see the boy that Zeus left behind. As you can imagine, Hestia heard about this and decided that she was going to go too. And so this meant Loki now had to recruit another level 4 to protect 2 gods, because poor Osvi couldn't do it on her own. And so he recruited Ryu. Well, recruit is kind of a weird word. He basically tried blackmailing her by referring to her as Gale Wind, but the other waitresses almost killed him. That is until he brought up Bel's name and said that they're going off to rescue him. And of course, Ryu and Sierra were both concerned and wanted to save Bel, and so Ryu volunteered to go. Funny thing is, when you have 2 level 4s, even if they have to protect 2 gods who have no abilities to fight it whatsoever, they pretty much were the only ones that were needed. Mikasa and the others basically just stood there and watched, but after discovering the bag of items and weapons and such that was abandoned by the Hestia Familia after the collapse of the ceiling, Ryu and Asvi came to the conclusion that they most likely went down to the safe zone. And so, they headed off to floor 18. Unlike Bel's group, this journey was so easy that they got there in maybe 4 hours at most. As for what Bel's group was up to during this time period, well, they successfully woke up from their injuries, and it turned out the person he was begging for help from was Eyes, and of course they received help from the Loki Familia. Eyes was so happy to see Bel again after all this time. She basically became his official bodyguard within the 18th floor. She showed him and his friends around to all her favorite spots, Riveria, the town, and all kinds of stuff. Gave him food, hosted a party, basically all that. Eventually, that's when Hestia's group finally made it to the 18th floor, and they were all now reunited. They all enjoyed each other's company for a day. That is until the Loki Familia had to go back up on the surface because they were done. They left. Bel and everyone else stayed behind so they can get one more day of rest before they went back up to the surface. At least that was the plan until Hermes decided to fuck around. So Hermes knew that Bel was the adopted grandson of Zeus, but Zeus also said that he had no potential, that he was basically a worthless child who couldn't become a hero. Obviously, Zeus didn't actually believe that, but Hermes wanted to make sure, since Bel was the last member of Zeus's Familia. So he decided to take the plucky, cheerful Bel and see if forcing the darkness of reality into his face would break his spirit. Let's rewind time before Bel was able to team up with Welf. His plan was to find an ally to go into the middle floors. A level 2 adventurer decided to volunteer in the worst way possible. Mord, the kind of guy who was jealous of Bel ranking up so fast, and also the fact that a bunch of women were surrounded him, decided to make an offer that he would team up with Bel, and Bel should be gracious of this, and decide to hand over some of his beautiful ladies. Yeah, Mord was a real dick at first. Obviously, Bel turned him down, and then Ryu and the other staff members beat the shit out of him and his friends. Well, Mord happened to be in Riveria at this time, and he was bad-mouthing Bel again, because Bel, on his first expedition to the middle floors, made it all the way to the 18th floor. So Bel was doing all kinds of amazing stuff, and Mord was getting more and more jealous. Hermes caught on to this, and decided to use Mord to test Bel. He gave Mord a magic item that gave him invisibility, and basically told him to do whatever he wanted. Mord convinced a bunch of Riverian adventurers to gather up, kidnap Hestia, and then blackmail Bel into fighting Mord in a one-on-one fight, with Mord using the invisibility helmet. Bel accepted this and decided to take on Mord one-on-one, with Hermes watching from a distance, and the rest of his team rushing up the hill trying to save Bel. Obviously, this didn't break Bel's will. He succeeded in what Hermes desired him to do, which was to overcome this little trial and successfully beat Mord. Now, the thing is that Hestia got freed by Lily and was now pissed off. And so she decided to release some of her godly aura as a way to scare all the Avengers off to end the fight. I don't know if Hermes had this planned, but he knew what was coming as soon as Hestia did what she did. And the dungeon, sensing a god within it, unleashed a special floor boss, a black Goliath, Instead of being a level 4 like a normal Goliath, it's a level 5. It also has a sonic roar that can annihilate pretty much anything it hits. And third, and most dangerous, is the fact that it has regeneration. Oh, and also the dungeon decided to destroy all of its exits, trapping everyone inside, so the Goliath can then kill the god. So with their escape moves completely sealed off, all the adventurers were forced to basically fight this new threat. They gave everything they had. They even planned on keeping it at bay so it could be blasted with magic, but it just kept healing. And so their only resort was to basically just keep blasting it with magic until it ran out of magic itself and it couldn't heal anymore. But that was an act of desperation at that point. There was no way that the monster was going to run out of magic power before they did. And so one by one, everyone basically used all of their ultimate moves and were taken out by the Goliath. Ryu did concurrent casting while fighting the monster and doing magic at the same time, blasting it with everything she had. It did damage, but obviously didn't take it out. Asfa used her winged boosts to fly around so she could then take it out. She was able to destroy its eyes, but of course it regenerated, beat her. Mikoto revealed her magic, which is basically gravity magic, where she was putting it in a bind and trying to crush it, but eventually it was able to break free, and, well, she was out of the fight. And finally, Wealth. Now, up to this point, Wealth has explained that he hates magic swords, and he wants nothing to do with them. But Hestia was given a magic sword by Hephaestus, the last magic sword that Wealth ever made. And she gave Wealth the message that he needs to stop putting his pride before his friends. And at this moment, he finally came to realize what that meant. Because Bel tried himself to defeat Goliath with his Firebolt and Argonaut. But unfortunately, it only blew off its jaw, it regenerated, and then blasted Bel. And then it was about to do a finishing move to kill Bel, but luckily, Oka, with a shield, was able to put himself in between him and Bel, and he took the full front of the attack, saving Bel and fucking up Oga. So, with his best friend basically mutilated by the Goliath, he realized that if he wants to be as useful and as helpful to Bel as humanly possible as a blacksmith, he should use his magic swords. And so, well, finally decided to use a magic sword. This also wasn't strong enough to kill the Goliath, but it did fuck him up. So before everyone did their final moves, obviously Bel was knocked unconscious, and he was doing everything in his power to get back up, and everyone was doing, of course, their stuff, waiting for Bel to get back up. Because Hestia promised that when Bel gets up, he'll be able to defeat the monster. And so she's with Bel, begging him to wake up, begging him to fight back, do whatever he can. And Bel is semi-conscious within his own head, hearing Hestia, but he just can't move, he can't do anything. That is when Hermes starts to say a speech to Bel, one that Bel has heard many times before from his grandfather.
Not just anyone can be called a hero. It isn't the kind of title you can earn simply because you brandish a sword or carry a shield. And it's got nothing to do with magic or strength.
Bel, a hero is someone who sacrifices himself. He is willing to lose his life for the sake of the ones he loves. You may take a few lumps along the way, but don't lose heart, boy. The victor will always rise up from among the rabble.
Hold on tight to your wish.
Cry out with all your desire.
If you do,
then you will see
that it's
what makes a hero shine the brightest.
In this extremely desperate situation, and being inspired by his grandfather, Bel was able to meet the conditions to unlock Limit Off. Limit Off is how it sounds. It basically pumps up all of your stats to what your body can handle at that moment. Which means Bel, at a level 2, was most likely pumped up to the power of a level 4 or even a 5 at that moment. He was then able to combine that with Argonaut and a weapon he got from the deep floors thanks to Lily. And the combination of these three things allowed him to one-shot the Goliath. And that is when many of the people of Bavaria finally saw Bel for what he was, a hero. Even more, his tone changed completely. But the person who was most impressed, of course, was Hermes. At that very moment, Hermes decided that Bel was going to be the hero that the world needed. Bel was going to be the last great hero that fulfills the last great quest, slaying the one-eyed black dragon. Alright, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up so you can enjoy more Danmachi and other amazing things. Thank you and have a great day.